Okay, so good afternoon, dear colleagues. First of all, let me thank you for the kind invitation and for your interest in Statistics Portugal approach with respect to process description. It will be my pleasure today to make this presentation on how we have implemented the GSBPM. So this will be the focus of the presentation. As you see in the screen, I have three other names in this presentation. I will be the presenter, but these are very relevant people when we are talking about implementing a handbook based on the GSBPM, and I will try to explain why. And this is also an important message. So Magda Ribeiro is the director of the Planning, Control and Quality Unit, and she is the responsible for editing our statistical production process handbook. So our approach to the GSBPM. So she's the owner of the handbook itself and the way it relates to the GSBPM approach. And Jorge Magalhães is the director of the IT systems and methods, because he was the one that put in place an IT solution that I will show you, where we can plan and use the GSBPM in real terms and operational in every statistical survey and other activities as well. And finally, we have Sofia Rodrigues from the data collection department, which is responsible. She's responsible for data collection on business units and also for a new unit that was created very recently, but some already 2 years ago, that deals with administrative data from different sources. And she is also the Portuguese representative in the newly created ESS Innovation Agenda Network. And so, of course, that the model and our approach is important for every unit in the office, but these three are really key units because they really interfere in the way the model is and our handbook is implemented. And so I said in my brief words when Andre asked me to send something about the presentation that we would present something that show how was our way of implementing and constructing our own model, even before the GSBPM, because we have a long experience in using this process description. And it has been really a long way and a very interesting journey. And so these are our boxes. Our boxes are, we call it in-house the handbook of the boxes. And in fact, they are the same as the GSBPM. You cannot see them, but you know them for heart. But we also have them in detail in Portuguese because it's also important for us. And then I will just say something that I'm sure everybody knows concerning the advantages of documenting a statistical process. But anyway, I always say that it is always important to remind it and to systematize it for the sake of improving even on a daily basis what we have as a process description. And first of all, I would say that it facilitates internal and external communication, even at international level, about the statistical production. When we are talking about projects and exchanging information, we have a common language and terminology as well. And so it facilitates communication in general between the different actors that have to share the process even internally. The work, the innovation, or anything that has to do with the statistical process. And of course, it promotes standardization of specific terminology. For that, we already know. We have been working with the groups that have been designing GSBPM for a long time. And of course, this is a win project and a win approach. It of course fosters the process standardization, because when we are working together, especially when we are working together, when we are sharing experience among countries and among units and among NSIs, it's very interesting to have the GSBPM on the table to talk about what are you talking about exactly when we are exchanging experiences. It facilitates a lot in training, and I will have a message for you concerning one of our recent activities concerning that at the end of my presentation. And of course, it supports the planning process in a very, very detailed way, and this will be one of my main message in the presentation as well. It of course that provides a map for the entire process, we know that. One of the things that we are very much keen about is the necessary documentation that has to be produced along the process, but also the documentation that is a reference along the process. And I will show you also how we did it and the way it is implemented in Statistics Portugal by using the approach. And of course, innovation, modernization, and quality management in general are the activities where always the handbook and the process mapping is on the table. We are always using these documents as a very in the center document. It's the heart of the processes. Just for example, we are in the moment thinking on preparing the ISO 9001 certification in the whole organization, finally, for the ones who know me. And of course, that this document based on the GSBPM model is the most important one and the basic scope of the certification. But as I told you, you already know all. I think it was important just to start with these advantages. Just a very quick overview, just to explain you that I told you that in the beginning we started describing our process very early, before the GSBPM, and the first one was in '97. As you can see, it was very much like stovepipe, but it was very important that back then, because we took the example from Statistics Canada, and taking into account that it was a first approach, it was really important because the notion of having something described and very clear with responsibilities was very important for the house at that time. And so we did it that way. We divided it between primary statistics, which means surveys, and derived statistics, and it was a very simple and very with very simple descriptions. And then we moved forward and we started using the famous boxes, different from the GSBPM, but already with a 3-layer level approach. So back in 2006, we needed a 3-layer, and this was a message that we are always passing and exchanging information with other colleagues from other NSIs. The 3rd level was made for the first time at the level of task. At that time, we had 126 tasks, and they were very thoroughly discussed among the office. And this was particularly important because we had a big reorganization in the office in 2005 with the implementation of a central data collection department. And it was very important to have these tasks and this model in order to discuss where were the frontiers between the departments and this big department for data collection. And it helped a lot to divide and to describe better the functions of each department. Then in 2007, we improved the boxes, and the metrics on the tasks was even more detailed and even more reinforced with information on responsibilities, documentation, and outputs that had to be delivered. And it was then afterwards that we adopted the GSBPM in 2015, and then now lately we have already 3 editions based with the boxes of the GSBPM from UNES. So the main differences at the moment, from the version that the GSBPM model has, and our handbook, in fact, is the 3rd layer, this one in here, where we describe the main tasks of each process, because these are the part of the handbook which really has to do with our own business in terms of an organization and the way we are organized itself and the relations that we have with one another in respecting the structural organization. And so our boxes, as I said, our model is exactly the same. We have here a translation to Portuguese, and we also have to say that our handbook 100% is translated into English. So if anyone would like to have it, we'll be very happy to provide it to you individually. And so I'm not going to explain what the GSBPM is, but what I'm going to explain you is that, first of all, we had, to sum up until here, we had a lot of approaches before the GSBPM. Then we adapt ourselves to the GSBPM. The process description was something that was always on the table. And now we have a very important tool that describes the whole process for everything that we do, taking into account the statistical domains. What our process handbook does as well is the same as the GSBPM advises and provides information concerning the relations between the different sub-processes as well. In our case, what we do is at the third level, we have a lot of information that is very much related to our own reality and the way we relate in terms of responsibilities, meaning units responsibility for tasks. I have to say that the approach and the philosophy and the design is exactly the same as GSBPM. What I can tell you concerning what we have introduced lately in the last version, which whose date is from 2020, but already is being revised with some more information, that the tasks and the third layer is composed by 120 tasks, and it involves, of course, by chronological order, a number of tasks that are identified as such. Responsible units, as I told you, who are responsible for doing what, the type of activity, etc. And I will explain you briefly with an example of the metrics. I have to say also that before I go in that explanation, that this last revision in 2020 has already introduced, for instance, the data national infrastructure approach, meaning that there are tasks that we didn't have before that are related to the treatment, the integration, the validation of microdata coming from different data sources that are administrative, for instance, is strengthened information taking into account the systems that have been, our system that has been certified concerning security information and data protection. For instance, we didn't have that part so well devised there in the tasks, and also geographical information and all the information that has to do with geostatistics, geospatial statistics. So we are always introducing the new things that have to do with the innovations that we are doing and with the approaches that we are improving within the office, so that everybody sees themselves in the mapping. It's like it's not only important for us to introduce a handbook that shows what you do, but also the fact that we are able to see ourselves in the organization and in the process itself. And so what I can just show you very briefly, I'm looking at the time, what I can show you very briefly is the third layer, because this is the new part that it's not in the GSBPM as such. And so the third layer, this is an example of a task, the designing, so task number 30, the designing of reviewing of the collection instrument, specifying the attributes validation rules and the type of testing to be applied. So this is just an example. And this task is, of course, I'm going to take this up, is of course in the design phase and in the design collection sub-process of the GSBPM. So there is always a relationship with the model. And then you have the responsible department and the participant departments that are also responsible for interfering with that task. And I have to say that we made the decision that there are no units that the responsible unit for a task is only one. We don't have double responsibilities. there is always an owner of the task, but even though we can have various participants that interrelate with the owner of that task. And then we also have the applicability of the tasks according to the span of the statistical activity. If it's a new or an ongoing activity, if it's a census, a sampling based, an administrative source data type, etc. So there are always different categories for us to understand what we are talking about concerning a statistical activity. And then, there is an area where we have a lot of information that concerns the documentation to be produced in the context of each phase or sub-process and tasks. The reference to documentation that I was talking about before, because it's important for us to have also the information and the documents that are related or kind of procedure or a policy, anything that interferes with what I am doing in that task, and also the type of information that I have to deliver at the end of the task. Then I would also like to show you that we have an IT solution. It's a very it is a very ancient, not ancient, but old. In fact, it's old planning IT solution for the planning of all activities at our office. And what we have done in 2020 was to make this completely comparable with the tasks and sub-process at the level of the GSBPM, at our own process, meaning that everyone that makes the plan of a survey has the same tasks as that are described at our handbook. And so this is very important because we are all talking about the same thing when you read it in the book because it's a handbook, but the other part is the implementation part. So every time we are doing the planning of a survey of an activity that is based on administrative sources, whatever, we have in our IT application exactly the same tasks that we have in the handbook that was approved by Statistics Portugal as a whole. This is an example that I would just like to show you before I end, because one of the things that we have introduced is the geospatial approach in the mapping of the business process model, and in fact they are included with a total of 13 tasks. And it was also important to take into account also in a more clear way this dimension of the statistical production in the different areas of the different phases of the structure of the model. And then I just wanted to end by saying two things, only 2 slides, Andrea. The internal training that I just mentioned in the beginning, we have a specific training course for the integration of statisticians because we have a special career by law, and we have to have a course that is very important for integrate people in the career of statisticians, even though they come from different areas, either mathematics or statistics or even economy or sociologists. But we have a course, and this course is mapped together along the contents of the course is mapped along our handbook, so the GSBPM approach. And it's very important because it accompanies each course session so that participants can better understand the process through the training, of course, but also to visualize themselves in the organization, taking into account the place where they are going to work, but also the process as a whole. I mean, what is the relationships of their work together with the other units as well, and all the interrelations that they have as well in terms of units. And so this is very important to, for one side, in a way we have introduced the course and built the course, and then at the end of the course they also have to elaborate work as a result of the course, and they also have to relate this work in according to the GSBPM boxes, tasks, and phases and sub-process. So it's very important also for the integration and to the training in this case. And so what more, at the moment, what we are doing with our approach is the fact that we are taking this ISO certification for the whole organization, and of course we are doing and introducing the process indicators, so the key process indicators. We are not using exactly the key process indicators that are used by the ModernStats, but we are being inspired by them. So I think that a lot of work is also, we have to do some work on that respect still, but still we are working a lot on the indicators that have to do with administrative data and the information that goes in and outside the boxes. So this is a very important aspect for us at the moment. Of course, that the fact that, as I told you before, that this document is in the central of the ISO quality management system and in the certification as such, so everything will be dealt within the boxes and the tasks when we are undertaking the certification during this year. We will continue to foster training courses, having this mapping approach in the center. And of course, I will take the last one because it's very important for innovation thinking and strategic reasoning, as I mentioned in the beginning. It's not the fact that we map a process or make or use a GSBPM that innovation is done, but I think that the way you map and the way you describe your process helps a lot the way you can introduce innovation and even can devise an innovation project. And this has been very important for us as well. The way we relate each other at the organization level, internal and even with the outside, it's much related to the way you describe what you do and to the way you make evidence of what you do. And so it strengthens a lot and supports a lot of innovation projects and the way even the strategy for the coming years are dealt with. So we will continue this work. It has been very important to us, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you so much.